Lawyers were being embarrassed and judges were being embarrassed. The Lawyers Association bought the newspaper and then slandered the truthful language. And she had to work there and either slander or get fired. Well, she got fired because she wouldn't slander. Then she wanted compensation, got herself hooked up with 4 other scam artists, where they're better known as grifting, and then went ahead and downloaded and thought they could steal and not get caught. And they got caught and they went to prison. And if you read the article, it's all up and down. Emotionally, it's a disturbed individual who did some bad things. And then wrote this article and put it up there on the internet. I have a disclaimer up there as to all the different scam issues. I've never hurt anybody or taken anything from anybody. People that go into court half-baked get half-baked when they come out. If you don't have knowledge, like I said, you go from that wall to that wall. How many mistakes you get to make? If you don't study, this is not a 10-hour program. This is not a 50-hour program or a 100-hour program. This takes an average person 200 hours to become proficient, just to understand what this sentence means and how to break it down. Most of my students that are good have 2,000 to 10,000 hours of study. I've got 74,000 hours of study, and I've been at this for 30 years. But this is my calling in life. This is my job. This is my contract with my God, that I will be a teacher and teach quantum correct mathematical facts. And that's my spirit. I want to make sure there's a world for my kids and a world for my grandkids. And everybody that has seen this program, it changes you. Now, another thing is the mirror. Just like I had made a contract with myself when I was 18 years old. A husband and a wife, or a boyfriend and a girlfriend, you have problems. When I talk to you, I can't see my facial expressions. I can't see my eye contact. I can't see who I am and what I look like as how I present myself to you. Nor can you see what you look like talking to me or looking at me. I can see from your facial expressions, your body language, your smiles, if I'm making sense to you because you smile back at me, because you're learning something, because the mind is always happy when they're active. So if you have a problem with yourself, stand in front of a mirror and talk to yourself if that's the only person you trust. If you have a partner, or if you have children and you want to have a discussion with your kids, don't talk to them face to face. Stand in front of a mirror. Now you got 4 people there. You have to look yourself in the mirror, you have to look yourself in the eye, and you've got to talk to yourself as well as to the person standing next to you. You have to see and listen to yourself. Right now you just listen to yourself, but you don't see yourself. And when you see your own body language, 80% of communications is body language. So now you get to see who you are and how you perceive yourself to the world when you talk to yourself. And you'll learn much more about who you are. And whether you're talking to your child or talking to your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend, you'll be able to solve communications because you see body language and you get eye contact feedback. It's very powerful information. And it makes a difference between getting a divorce and staying together. Another thing is you are what you eat. I can take any one of you in this audience, put you on meat and potatoes for 90 days, and I will create a personality and a body chemistry type that will perform a specific way. I can then take you off meat and potatoes and put you on vegetables. And in 90 days, I will completely change you, and you will be a different personality and a different person. I can then take you off of vegetables and give you nothing but fruit. And in 90 days, I will change you again, and then I will put you on junk food. Crackers, potato chips, whatever, you know. And I will change you again. Take a husband and a wife. They live together, they eat together, they work together, and then along comes the 7-year cycle. 80% of all human beings, both men and women, go through a chemical change every 7 years. It takes 14 months for this chemical change to take place. The chemical change will start very slow, and about the 4th month you get into it, you want to change your diet, change your clothes, change your job. And by the time this thing accelerates itself, you want to get a divorce at the end of 14 months. You want to change partners, you want to change jobs, and you stop eating together. And the wife might be at home doing a normal meal, meat and potatoes and vegetables for the children, and the husband's out eating junk food or sandwiches or drinking beer or something and has a different diet because of a work schedule change. And all of a sudden, like, his body chemistry changes. When the body chemistry changed, the scent, S-C-E-N-T, changes. And all of a sudden, like, the attractiveness that kept you together when you got married because you were attracted to each other's scent and condition of thinking because your chemistries were the same, have now grown apart. You don't smell the same, you don't think the same, your personalities are different, and all of a sudden, like, you're living with a stranger. And after a while, it becomes so intolerable you can't stay together anymore. So if you're aware of chemistry changes, scent changes, food changes, sleeping patterns, and you sit down and you discuss it, you can get back to where you were. You can normalize your individual. See, in the old days, in the covered wagon days before we had all the instant transportation, a husband and wife would go out on a farm, they'd eat the same food, live together from cradle to grave. They didn't ever think about divorce because they were partners. Chemically, they were partners. Today, we are separated. We sit on computers. We don't talk to each other. We develop all these differences. And the world breaks down, and we all become individuals. So you can become anything you want to become in life. But you got to know what your diets are. You got to know what your personality is, your scent. You have to pay attention to things. Take your vitamins, your glucosamine. Know about zappers to stay healthy. There's 5 forms in life to take place. Your first rule is physical and mental health. Your second one is contract. You must honor all contracts that you make, because if you honor your contracts, your physical and mental health will be intact. The third thing is you must take care of the things you create. In other words, children, if you have children. Because you created an entity that's going to grow up, because if you take care of your children, they are a reflection of who you are, which affects your contracts and your honor, which affects your physical and mental health. The fourth thing is your job. You have to work. You have to have a job to support the children. Oh wait, I got that wrong. Your job comes third, and then the children come fourth. Because you got to have the job to support your health, to support your contract. Because if you don't have money, you can't make a contract. And then your physical and mental health. And you get these things out of track, the whole thing falls apart. And then the fifth thing on the list is your spouse. They are an independent individual. Whether it be men or women, that comes 5 on the line because they have the same rules and regulations. They have to maintain their physical and mental health. They have to maintain their contracts that they honor. They have to maintain their jobs and ability to feed themselves, earn money, earn respect, earn whatever it takes in the world, and you both work together to take care of the children. And if you keep these 5 rules intact in your life, you will find that you will be successful throughout, and you will get through all the hardships you have in life. Any questions on some of these philosophies and issues? There's a lot of, I specialize in like 115 different fields because of the amount of reading I do. I've been a day trader in the stock market for 41 years. So I research companies that are developing medical technologies, sciences, engineering that are futuristic. And then I cross-reference this thing. Sometimes a company will develop something in 1980, for instance, 30 years ago, and it failed. It doesn't work in society. Well, the next generation comes along, and then now it's 2000. The same company wants to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going, that company's going to fail. It looks really good at first, I'll short that company because the project doesn't work. And it'll go high because it's an idea which nobody remembers 20 years earlier, and it'll slide off into oblivion and be worth nothing. So I'll make money on it. So by doing all this reading, when you put money on the table, $50,000, your learning curve changes when you want to study an object that you're going to buy and invest that much money in it. So you learn in depth. You learn about how the company is run. You learn about mechanics, corporate structure. That's why when I come into a country, I can go ahead and set up like the Origines. I can sit down, I can show them how to set up corporation, how to write contracts, how to have a corporate trust. That's what we did in Hawaii. Got the Hawaiians organized, had a corporate trust, educated them how to read and write in quantum, how to run a business as a corporation, have a board of directors, have elections, elect judges, have license plates, driver's license, insurance, so they have the right to travel and communicate with each other. We're not just a bunch of unorganized yahoos. And because the United States government has recognized the Hawaiian Kingdom and their ability to organize on a responsible level under Robert's Rules of Order, they are functioning and growing as an independent entity, and Hawaii is getting back their identity to become a sovereign island again. But Hawaii is owned by the United States Postal Service, it's owned by the Japanese Postal Service, and it's owned by the Chinese Postal Service, as well as the Hawaii Postal Service. There's 4 entities on that island. So that's, it isn't what everybody thinks it is. Japan regards Hawaii as one of their states, so does China. And with 35% of the population is Chinese, and 35% is Japanese, and 20% is white, and the rest are Filipino and Hawaiian. So it's a melting pot in the Pacific. And they're cousins to you guys down here. So think of any questions before I start on this? Yes?
I think I heard on one of your discs that you're looking at the banks worldwide, and I think you're talking about a currency that you're setting up.
Yeah, we're currently, since 1990, we went to the United Nations. We served 82 countries with bank treaties. This is a 115-page document, has all the notarized, the CPAS, the Sea Treaty, the drug law. Russell Gould and I created this here. We have all the postal treaties involved with that, as well as the bank constitutions, the bank transfer of money, all done in syntax language. There is no money in the syntax world. We deal strictly in gold, silver, and minerals. We currently have, I believe it's close to 400 million tons of 999 silica, which is used for all computers and TV screens in a single deposit in Wyoming. That's our mineral deposit for our bank. But we haven't touched it. It's just, it's in the ground. These are crystals that are 60 feet long and 8 feet diameter. And it was discovered in 1953 while elk hunting, back when there were elk in the Rocky Mountains. And then we wrote a quantumized land patents on the mineral deposit, and we filed that with the Department of Interior. And the Department of Interior tried to sue for that our mineral claims were irrelevant by saying, yeah, in what language you guys, the Department of Interior say that they own it. They don't have any constitution. They don't have any correct sentence structure, communication, syntax, they even have a charter or an oath of office. And our claims were upheld at the federal court level. So we have access to these things if we want to go ahead and mine them. They started mining them last year. There's other areas around the world where gold and silver deposits have been contracted to go into a quantumized banking. Russell's currently overseeing that. We have activity taking place in Sydney, Auckland, Dubai, London, with the insurance companies worldwide, with the Chinese on syntax banking. Everyone has the banks. They've had 10 years to study the information and get their people in order, but the whole world has to shift together. You can't have a banking truth and a banking fiction simultaneously, because the truth is going to disqualify all fiction. Last year we syntaxed the insurance and the mortgage contracts, which created the Great Depression in the United States. and collapsed our housing market. We had 5 million foreclosures taking place as a result of that. And so everyone's really upset, but it's got to change. I mean, it's got to get fixed. So we'll go ahead and we'll do this. So 10 minutes, 12. Yeah, we got 20 minutes. All right, this is a lawyer wrote this, and the lawyer who wrote this is got 4 wheels spinning in the mud and he's not moving anywhere. Now the adverb we is undefined. Will becomes the verb. Be making arrangements, which is a no contract word. So making is an adjective here, making arrangements to be a pronoun. Now for you, now he's calling the client a verb here. And he's calling his law firm a we. So the law firm is an adverb and the client is a verb. Where's my fact? Now to be is an adverb verb in future time, which means the possessive has been moved into the future. And then they put medical exam. Instead of saying medical exam, it's medically examined, adding ly to make it an adverb, modifying the exam to be no contract as a verb in past time, and becomes a conjunction neutral. For assessments, which means no contract, M-E-N-T is contract. And they're going to make that into a coloring with what? With is a pronoun. So they're going to color nothing. And he said nothing here, so he's coloring nothing. A is an adverb, making a doctor to be a verb because doctors only practice. PRA means no contract. Doctors will write the reports in boxes. They will write it in adverb verb, italicize it, and double space it so that there is no medical report that you can come back and sue for malpractice. The doctor will guess about most of the things he puts down. Because he doesn't know the history of an individual, he can only see what's in front of him at the time and can't certify collectively what a car accident does to an individual. Short of seeing a broken bone or a ruptured organ, he has to guess about everything else. So they turn him into a verb. In due course becomes an adverb, adjective, pronoun. But when you're dealing with an adverb over here, this adverb can make doctor to be an adjective and in to be the pronoun, and due course to be an adverb verb, turning it into a dangling participle verb. Now, when all possible, an attorney, if I look at all the rest of the sentence structures that this attorney has written in 125 pages, if he ends sentences in a dangling participle verb, that means that this is his volition to never complete a sentence. And then this will be correct because it is associated with all the rest of the patterns that he has been creating. And so this top line here is a fiction. So is the bottom line a fiction, but this is a more correct fiction based on the other patterns and associations that an individual has done. So in a medical examination or an insurance claim, we would go ahead and take, how would you write this? The question is, how would you write this? We showed you it's wrong as a syntax sentence. Well, first off, we doesn't exist here. Will, we're not going to use that word because that is undefined. Be is undefined. Making is undefined. Arrangements is a future tense thing. It's a no contract word. That comes out. But if they're going to make an arrangement, you're going to have a contract. So the law firm is going to go ahead and have knowledge. Oh, this here is interfering with us. This is the word justice, J-U-S-T-I-C-E. J-U is no law, S is speak, T-I is title, C-E is judge. Judge title speaks no law. That's what justice means. You want justice? You get the same justice as everybody else gets. No law. That's one of the traps. You know how we found that? The dome in the state of Wisconsin has Lady Justice standing like this. It's a mosaic on the ceiling of our dome, our Capitol dome. And it's Justice. I'm going, why would you break a word up like that? So I looked up the symbols of Justice in the Masonic codes, and this is what it says. So they were advertising. And authority always runs backwards, so there it means judge title speaks no law. Okay. The implication is for you. To be is in future time. We don't want anything to do with that. We know we've got to have something to be a medical exam. So that's relevant, but that's a compound word. But a medical exam, EX means no. So for the law firm's knowledge of the client's damage is with the medical claim of, now assessment means no contract. We don't want to be assessed. Of the evidence doctor's irrelevant, due course is irrelevant. Of the evidence with the damages, body damages, possessive bodies damages, by a doctor. There, now that's the correct sentence. That one will hold up in court. That one will get you paid. So we don't want a doctor to do an exam. We want a doctor to certify the fact that there is a damage. In other words, show me a x-ray of a broken bone. That's physical. That's not an opinion. Proves that somebody has a headache. Anybody can say they have a headache. Prove it. Well, if you take a picture of an aneurysm or something that's a disorder within the brain, yes, we'll have physical proof of it. They can do a blood test and say your blood pressure is too high. You have too much creatinine in your blood. That'll cause a headache. Do you know what headaches are caused by? Two things. High blood pressure or low blood pressure, or you got to go to the bathroom. Because if you don't go to the bathroom, whether it be urine or feces, you got too much poison in your bloodstream. And there's another cause. If you have, if your flatworm creates too much feces in the cartilage, it'll create pressure in the spinal cord, better known as nitrogen. And if you take and you crack your neck and break the bubble, usually it takes about 3 seconds from the time that the nitrogen bubble removes itself from the spinal cord, your headache goes away. So sometimes it's just as simple as cracking your neck, going to the bathroom, or checking your blood pressure. If your blood pressure is either up or down, it means you have a chemical imbalance in your system due to probably your diet. Say again? You might need water, you might need coffee with a little caffeine in it to jack you up a little bit, or some ginseng. You might need to calm yourself down. If you got hypertension, take some baking soda. Pull your pH down in your blood. Baking soda is great. You got jumpy legs, leg cramps, sore feet, any of those kind of things when you lay down. As soon as you lay down, your blood pressure in your legs changes, goes from 180 down to 100. There's not enough circulation to remove the amino acids out of your bloodstream, you get leg cramps. take baking soda. It's the safest, cheapest cure-all that you can imagine. 15 seconds later after you drink it, it'll totally check your whole bloodstream.
What sort of dilution?
What's that?
What sort of dilution?
I use a half a teaspoon in 4 ounces of water and drink it. That's enough to knock it out of you. Based on, I weigh 180 pounds, so that always takes care of me. If you're a 240-pound guy, you might want to take a whole teaspoon. Or a 300-pound person might need a whole teaspoon. 100-pound person, maybe a quarter of a teaspoon. Take whatever you need. If that's not enough and you still feel a little bit tight, take a little bit more. If you take too much, it'll make you feel like really weird for about 20 minutes, but your body will neutralize it. Yes, question.
If you're corresponding with a company or corporation or a bank or whatever, like with the first letter, it was understanding, we will be making arrangements for you to be medically examined for the assessment with the doctor in due course. I get that completely. I know what's coming up. If I receive something in the mail that said, for the law firm's knowledge of the client's damage I wouldn't understand that. So is there a place, what I'm saying is if you're writing in syntax to a corporation and you want to write it in truth English, and they don't understand what you're saying because they don't do syntax, well, where is the breakdown in the communication?
Write it both ways.
So you could write it this and then...
Sure, you can write it in adverb, verb, syntax, that you're used to, and then go ahead and say, well, we wrote it to you the same way a lawyer would, and make that statement. This is how a lawyer writes to you, this is how your lawyers read it.
So you can understand it.
And then syntax it and say, this is how many syntax mistakes you made, and this is what it looks like corrected. And give it to them both ways. Now, when we do lawsuits, the federal government requires us that we have cover pages on our lawsuits. When you file federal, you have the same rules down here as we do up in Wisconsin, or should I say the states. And they say, we won't file the papers unless you use our form. Same thing with process of service for notifying the clients, the individuals. Now, don't forget, you guys are schooled in syntax. The people you're talking to are not. And you know from your own experience that it takes a long time to learn this, so the guy you're serving is not going to be a spontaneous combustion of, bang, I understand this right away. So don't worry about it. Give him his papers in adverb verb, use the government's form, slap the quantum on the back. Give it to him both ways. That way you're protected under quantum, and they have the volition, if they show up, all service is good service. That's the rule. That's because the person shows up in court and says, I didn't get service, Your Honor. It says, well, if you didn't get service, what are you doing here? In other words, how did you find out to be here today? By his own confession that he is there shows that he got good service. Simple as that. Your volition, your performance is what makes the contract. When we graduate from judge school, you get a hat that says, if nobody's talking, everybody's walking. Which means we need people to confess to anything that they do and everything that they do. We need them to get into an argument of traverse. It's just like I say to you, what is your name? Your instinct is to tell me your name. The correct answer is yours an adverb modifying the verb name. My name is not what? Is that a question or a statement? So you got 3 different questions I could ask there. And if you maintain a level of questioning, it's called a demur, to get to a conclusion, which is a contract of communications, and the judge knows you have the capacity to communicate with him, he's going to know not to get into this discussion with you because you're going to educate everyone else in the courtroom. This is a case that happened in Tampa, Florida. Man comes out of a bar, 1:30 in the morning, drunk, takes a leak in the bush, pees on a vice cop who's standing there, pees on his foot. So the vice cop steps out and arrests him for lewd and lascivious and going to the bathroom in public. Now this is his 3rd offense, so it's a mandatory 5 years in prison and a $2,500 fine in the state of Florida. And you think the guy to have a little bit more sense, you know, after being convicted twice of this same thing. So he's in court, and his friend who had came to my seminar calls me up and he says, "Hey Dave, you want to go to court with me today?" And my buddy's going to court and he's facing 5 years in prison. And you see what you can do to help him. So there's roughly 100 people waiting to be heard in front of this court for traffic offenses, misdemeanors, little jaywalking offenses, you know. And the judge tells the bailiff to pass out these. You can plead guilty, not guilty, no contest. Okay, adverb, verb, and guilty means responsibility, which means no speak. So you can plead no speak, not guilty, which is adverb, verb, and a negative condition of making this a verb, or no contest, which means that my contest is a verb, and it's a no verb, or rather a no contest, which means a no contract. So which part of no don't we understand? So I went ahead and I take the form, and I corrected the 88 mistakes on the form. Then I assigned a Title 18, 1001, fictitious conveyance, under mail fraud to extort money, criminal activity under Title 42, 1985, subsection 1 for conspiracy, subsection 2 for obstructing evidence of witnesses, and subsection 3 for depriving evidence and witnesses for an act of racketeering under Title 18, section 1961. And then I said to the judge, you just caused a damage under Title 42, 1983 as a personal damage against this individual. Would you like to participate? The judge looking and he says, "Oh my God," he says. And he looks at all the people. There's 50 guys in the audience. And he goes, "Give this back to the man. I'm not going to accept it." And as soon as the bailiff got it, because he's the one passing it out, he crumples it up. My client goes, "That's my evidence. I want my evidence." Judge says, "That's your evidence?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "You guys made 88 mistakes. You tried to extort money from me." Judge says, "Give me that back." He looks at it and he says, "All right." He signs the bottom of it. He says, "How much money you got in your pocket?" He says, "I got $20. He says, $20 court cost. He looks at all the people in the audience and he goes, "Oh, we're going to do something different, bailiff. Lock that door." He says, "Every one of you in here," he says, "if you pay $20 court costs," he says, "all your cases are dismissed. We got speeding, drunk driving, lewd and lascivious, burglary. There's a couple of fights, disorderly conducts in bars." I mean, everybody in the room was facing hundreds of dollars and years in prison, and they all lined up and signed, paid $20 and got out there and had all their cases vacated. Because the judge just found out that he gave all 50 people a lie. And we just discussed how the paperwork was a lie. As soon as he had the courtroom cleared, the next 50 guys came in and he harvested all of them because they didn't know they didn't know. He told me to get out of the courtroom. So the rest couldn't be harvested. So, but that's, I was in Milwaukee. I had a parking ticket. I sat there. A guy had a 125 mile an hour speed violation in a 55 zone and got $20 court cost. Because I was there to witness, and a judge can't commit a felony in front of the judge prosecutor. Everyone in the courtroom got $20 court costs in Milwaukee, was dismissed. And as soon as I walked out the courtroom door, the next group got, he had tinted windows, $88 fine and 4 points against his driver's license. I mean, it's pretty serious stuff. Drunk driving, 6 months in jail, $2,500 fine, which is normally just about a $300 fine. But he threw the book. They had to reharvest everything that he lost before that.